"Nobody wants me, I need a husband," said the Apache to the cowboy. "Give me one last chance." Alina sat on the edge of the wooden porch of her small home, staring out at the horizon as the sun began to set. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, a beauty she could admire even if her heart felt heavy. She sighed deeply, feeling the loneliness that had been her constant companion for years. People in her town often whispered about her. They said she was too proud, too quiet, too unusual. She had grown up hearing similar words, and though she had tried to ignore them, they had left marks that never fully healed. At 28, she felt the weight of life pressing on her, as if time itself was mocking her. She wanted someone to love, someone to trust, someone to share her days with. Yet every attempt had ended in disappointment, leaving her to wonder if she was destined to live alone. Her thoughts wandered to the fairs, the dances, and the little gatherings she had attended over the years. She remembered the hopeful glances she had cast toward men who never returned her interest. She remembered the awkward silences, the polite but distant smiles, and the whispered advice from neighbors that often felt more like judgment than guidance. "Nobody wants me," she muttered quietly to herself, her voice barely audible over the soft rustle of the evening wind. "Maybe I'm just not meant to be loved." Alina's family had always encouraged her to find a husband, hoping she would settle down and live a normal life. But her experiences had made her cautious. She didn't want a relationship built on pity or convenience. She wanted someone who saw her for who she truly was, someone who valued her heart as much as her mind. Yet, each passing year seemed to make that hope smaller, more fragile. The emptiness she felt wasn't just about being alone. It was about being invisible in a world where people only saw what they wanted to see. One evening, as the town prepared for the annual fair, Alina felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. The fair was always crowded, filled with laughter, music, and the scent of fried foods. It was a place where people came to celebrate, but for her, it often felt like a reminder of what she didn't have. She dressed carefully, choosing a simple but elegant outfit, and tied her long hair back so that it would frame her face nicely. She wanted to look her best, not to impress anyone specifically, but to feel a sense of dignity and pride in herself. As she walked toward the fairgrounds, the sounds of the town enveloped her. Children ran past with balloons in their hands, vendors shouted about their treats, and music floated through the air. Alina tried to focus on the pleasant sights and sounds, hoping to distract herself from the nagging loneliness in her heart. She wandered through the stalls, admiring handcrafted items and small trinkets, but her mind kept drifting back to the thought of love. She wondered if there was anyone out there who could understand her, who could accept her without judgment, and who would be willing to take the time to truly know her. It was then that she noticed him. Jake the cowboy stood near a ring toss game, his rugged figure catching her eye. He had an aura of calm strength, and his eyes carried a depth that made her heart skip a beat. She had seen him around town before, always quiet, always observing, but there was something about him that intrigued her now. He wasn't flashy or overly confident, but he carried himself with a steady presence that drew people in without them realizing it. Alina hesitated for a moment, feeling a mix of fear and curiosity. She had never approached a man like this before, especially one who seemed so self-contained and mysterious, but something inside her urged her forward. She took a deep breath and walked toward him, her heart racing with both hope and anxiety. "Hello," she said softly, unsure of what else to say. Jake turned, his eyes meeting hers. He gave a small, polite nod and a faint smile. "Hi," he replied. There was a hint of surprise in his voice, as if he hadn't expected anyone to speak to him so directly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the fair seemed to fade around them, leaving only the two of them standing there. Alina felt her courage rising, pushing her to speak her mind despite the vulnerability she felt. I need a husband," she blurted out, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Give me one last chance." The words hung in the air, bold and raw. Jake blinked, momentarily taken aback. He wasn't sure how to respond. This wasn't a typical introduction. Most people would have started with small talk, casual greetings, or polite compliments. But Alina had spoken from her heart, with honesty and urgency that was impossible to ignore. He studied her for a moment, noticing the sincerity in her eyes. There was no manipulation, no games, just a woman who was willing to put her feelings out in the open, despite the risk of rejection. It was unusual, and for Jake, it was refreshing. He had grown accustomed to people hiding behind smiles and polite words, never revealing their true thoughts. Alina's words were different. They were brave, and they demanded attention. "I don't know what to say," Jake finally admitted, scratching the back of his neck. He wasn't used to moments like this, where someone's vulnerability forced him to confront his own emotions. That's a lot to take in. Alina felt a pang of disappointment, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had expected hesitation. She had expected doubt. What she hadn't expected was the curiosity and warmth that lingered in his eyes, even amidst his caution. "I know it's sudden," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I can't wait anymore. I can't keep hoping for something that may never come. I need someone who will try, someone who will care, someone who will be with me." Jake looked away for a moment, watching a group of children play nearby. He could see the fear and loneliness in her expression, the weight of years spent feeling unwanted. It reminded him of his own struggles, of moments when he had felt isolated and misunderstood. He realized that this moment, unexpected as it was, could be the beginning of something important. "Maybe," he said slowly, turning back to her, "we can get to know each other first. Take it one step at a time." Alina felt a spark of hope. It wasn't a promise of love, not yet, but it was acknowledgement. It was recognition. It was the first step toward breaking the walls that had kept them both guarded for so long. Over the next few hours, they walked together through the fair, sharing stories about their lives, their struggles, and their dreams. Alina spoke of her childhood, her family, and the loneliness she had felt despite being surrounded by people. Jake shared stories of life on the ranch, of responsibilities and challenges, and of moments when he had felt similarly isolated. They laughed at small things, found common ground in unexpected places, and began to see each other not as strangers, but as people who had lived, suffered, and hoped. By the time the sun had fully set and the fair lights glimmered in the night, Alina felt a sense of warmth she hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone could see her for who she truly was. And Jake, in his quiet, steady way, felt the same. As they parted ways that night, Alina's heart was lighter, but she knew the journey was only beginning. She had taken a chance, spoken her truth, and in return she had found someone willing to listen, willing to understand, and willing to step into the unknown with her. And as she walked home under the starry sky, Alina whispered to herself, "Maybe this is the one last chance I've been waiting for." After their meeting at the fair, Alina couldn't stop thinking about Jake. His quiet presence, the honesty in his eyes, and the way he had listened to her made her feel seen for the first time in years. She replayed their conversation over and over in her mind, remembering the slight hesitation in his voice and the way he had smiled at her stories. It was a smile that was gentle but full of curiosity, a smile that seemed to say he wanted to know more. The thought both excited and terrified her because hope had always been something she guarded carefully. The next morning, Alina woke early, the sunlight spilling through her small window. She went about her routine, but everything felt different. The chores, the simple breakfast, the quiet moments of the morning, all of it seemed brighter somehow. She found herself glancing out of the window, hoping to catch sight of him. Her heart fluttered at the possibility that Jake might think of her as much as she thought of him. Meanwhile, Jake was also thinking about Alina. He was a man of few words, used to solitude and the wide open spaces of the ranch where life moved slowly. He had never been one to rush into relationships. Trust, to him, had always been something earned, not given lightly. But there was something about Alina's sincerity that stayed with him. Her boldness in expressing her needs, her willingness to be vulnerable, and the genuine sadness she carried. These things made him pause and reflect on his own heart. He found himself wondering if this could be more than a fleeting encounter. Days passed, and they began to see each other more often. At first it was casual, greetings in the market, shared smiles at the local cafe, small conversations at community events. But slowly these moments grew longer, more meaningful. Alina found comfort in Jake's presence. She discovered that he had a quiet sense of humor, a way of noticing small details, and a patience that made her feel safe. For the first time, she could speak freely without fearing judgment or rejection. Jake, on the other hand, found himself opening up in ways he hadn't before. He told Alina about the struggles of running a ranch, the responsibility he felt toward his family, and the heartbreaks that had made him wary of trusting anyone completely. He had always kept his emotions contained, believing that vulnerability was dangerous. But Alina had a way of making him feel understood, of showing him that it was possible to share without being hurt. Their conversations often wandered into personal dreams and childhood memories. Alina spoke of the times she had been laughed at by peers, the moments when she had felt invisible, and the ways she had tried to prove herself to the world. Jake listened carefully, sometimes nodding, sometimes simply holding her gaze, letting her words settle between them. He realized that her strength was not in hiding her pain, but in acknowledging it and continuing forward. One evening, they found themselves walking along the outskirts of the town, the sky painted in soft shades of pink and purple. The air was cool, carrying the scent of grass and distant fires. Alina glanced at Jake, noticing the lines of concentration on his face, the way he seemed both thoughtful and gentle. She felt her heart tighten, a mix of anticipation and fear. "I'm glad I met you," she said softly, almost as if speaking the words aloud made them real. Jake looked at her, surprised by the sudden intensity in her voice. "I'm glad too," he admitted. "You're different, honest, real. It's rare to find someone like that." Alina smiled, a small, shy smile. "I've spent most of my life being invisible, Jake, feeling like nobody wanted me, like I didn't matter, but you make me feel like I do." He was quiet for a moment, absorbing her words. "You do matter, Alina," he said finally. "More than you know, I don't usually let myself get close to anyone, but with you, it's different." Their bond grew slowly, like a plant stretching towards sunlight. They shared simple joys, helping each other with small tasks, attending town events together, and talking late into the evening about hopes and fears. Alina noticed how Jake's eyes softened when he listened, how his hand would brush against hers by accident and linger just long enough to make her heart race. She felt herself falling for him, a feeling she had almost forgotten existed. But even as their connection deepened, doubts lingered. Alina worried that her desire for a husband might seem too forward, too desperate. She feared that Jake might lose patience or think she was rushing things. At the same time, Jake struggled with his own reservations. He cared for her deeply, but years of disappointment had left him cautious. He wanted to protect his heart, but he also didn't want to push Alina away. One day, they decided to work together on the ranch. Alina had never spent much time with livestock, but she was eager to learn. She watched as Jake demonstrated how to care for the horses, his hands steady and confident. He explained each task with patience, making sure she understood. Alina laughed when she struggled with the reins or slipped in the mud, and Jake laughed too, a rare sound that warmed her heart. "That's not so easy, is it?" Jake said with a grin. Alina wiped the sweat from her forehead, laughing. "Not at all. But it's fun, especially with you helping me." Their time on the ranch became a series of small victories and shared challenges. They repaired fences together, mended tools, and even cooked meals side by side. Through these moments, their connection strengthened. Alina began to trust Jake more, feeling that he respected her and valued her presence. Jake, in turn, admired her resilience, her willingness to try new things, and her courage in facing her insecurities. Despite their growing closeness, the town continued to whisper. Some people questioned why Alina and Jake were spending so much time together, while others wondered if a cowboy and an Apache woman could truly be compatible. Alina heard the murmurs but tried not to let them affect her. She knew that what mattered was their bond, not the opinions of others. Jake, however, could feel the subtle judgments too. It reminded him that love, even when genuine, often required courage to withstand external pressures. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Alina and Jake sat together on a wooden fence, watching the sky turn deep shades of purple and gold. Alina felt the warmth of his shoulder against hers and the steady rhythm of his breathing. She realized that she didn't want this moment to end, that she wanted more than fleeting companionship. She wanted a partnership, someone to walk through life with hand in hand. "Jake," she said quietly, her voice almost a whisper, "I know we're just beginning, but I feel like I can be myself with you, like I don't have to hide." Jake turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the fading light. "You don't have to hide, Alina, not with me. I want to know you, all of you." Her heart leapt at his words, a mixture of relief and joy flooding her senses. She realized that hope was no longer a fragile dream. It was tangible, growing stronger with each day they spent together. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that love might be possible, that someone could care for her as deeply as she cared for them. That night, as Alina walked home under the stars, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. She knew there would be challenges ahead, misunderstandings, fears, and the whispers of the town. But she also knew that she had taken a step toward something real, something worth fighting for. And somewhere in the quiet of the night, she felt certain that Jake felt the same. Alina climbed into bed, her thoughts still filled with him. She smiled, remembering the gentle way he had guided her through tasks, the patience he had shown, and the moments of laughter they had shared. She closed her eyes, imagining a future where they could continue to grow together, learning from each other and facing life side by side. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel unwanted. She felt seen, valued, and hopeful. And as she drifted into sleep, she whispered softly to herself, "Maybe this is the beginning of something real. Maybe this is my chance." The days passed quietly at first, filled with shared moments and small joys. Alina and Jake were becoming more comfortable around each other, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Yet, as the town noticed the growing closeness between them, whispers and judgment began to surface. Some people questioned the union between an Apache woman and a cowboy, while others simply speculated, offering opinions that stung more than they realized. Alina could feel the eyes of strangers lingering a little too long, the subtle sneers and the half-hearted smiles. It wasn't cruelty exactly, but it carried weight. Every comment, no matter how small, reminded her that the path she had chosen was not easy. Alina tried to brush it off, telling herself that the opinions of others didn't matter. She had fought too hard to be true to herself to let gossip dictate her choices. But there were moments, quiet and vulnerable moments, when the doubts crept in. Was she rushing things with Jake? Did he feel the same intensity she felt? Would his patience wane when confronted with the reality of societal pressure? She couldn't help but worry. Jake, meanwhile, noticed the subtle tension in Alina. She had always been strong, but there were times when her shoulders slumped, when her eyes flickered with worry. He knew that some of it came from their environment, from the quiet judgment of neighbors and acquaintances. He wanted to shield her from it, but he also knew that love was not about protection alone. It was about facing challenges together. He tried to reassure her with gentle words and small gestures, but he could see the anxiety that lingered. One afternoon, Jake invited Alina to help with the cattle. It was hard work, requiring patience and teamwork, but it was also an opportunity for them to spend time together away from the prying eyes of the town. Alina followed him across the fields, watching how he moved with ease and confidence. There was something comforting in his presence, something steady and grounding. "Hold this rope," Jake instructed, handing her a coil of thick rope. Alina tried to follow his directions, but the rope slipped from her hands more than once. Jake chuckled softly, stepping closer to guide her. "Careful, you've got to keep it tight, but not too tight. Feel the rhythm," he explained patiently. Alina laughed at her clumsiness, feeling a mixture of frustration and amusement. "I'm not as skilled as you, I guess," she admitted. "You'll get there," Jake said reassuringly. "It's just practice, and besides, you're learning fast, that's what matters." As they worked side by side, Alina felt a sense of partnership she had never experienced before. Here in the open fields, with the sun warming her back and the wind carrying the scent of grass and earth, she felt free. She felt valued. She felt seen. Yet, even in these moments of connection, the outside world waited with its quiet judgments. Some neighbors had begun whispering about the unusual pairing. "Why would a cowboy be interested in her?" they said. "She's too different, too proud." Others whispered about Jake, questioning his intentions and suggesting that he might be playing with her feelings. Alina heard fragments of these comments, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes carried by the wind. Each one chipped away at her confidence, even as she tried to remain strong. One evening, after a long day of work, Alina and Jake sat by the fence, watching the sun dip behind the hills. The sky was a brilliant display of oranges and purples, and the world felt peaceful, almost suspended in time. But Alina's mind was restless. She had heard enough whispers to plant seeds of doubt in her heart. She turned to Jake, her voice trembling slightly. Do you ever wonder if people will accept us?" she asked quietly. Jake looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "I've thought about it," he admitted. "But I don't care what others think. What matters to me is us, you and me, that's what counts." Alina's heart swelled with gratitude, but the fear lingered. "It's not just that," she said. I worry, what if we face something we can't handle? What if our bond isn't strong enough? Jake reached for her hand, holding it firmly. Then we face it together. Love isn't easy, Alina. It's never perfect. But if we trust each other, if we communicate and stay honest, we can get through anything. His words offered comfort, but they also reminded her of the reality she couldn't ignore. Love, as beautiful as it was, required courage. Courage to face the judgments of others, courage to face one's own fears, and courage to risk heartbreak. Alina nodded slowly, letting his words sink in, but a quiet tension remained in her chest. The next few days brought challenges that tested them more than they had anticipated. A misunderstanding at the town market led to an argument between Alina and a neighbor, who questioned her choices and implied that Jake's attention might not be genuine. Alina's emotions ran high, and she returned home feeling hurt and frustrated. Jake noticed her distress and tried to soothe her, but even he struggled to navigate the subtle social pressures that had begun to weigh heavily on them both. One afternoon, Jake found Alina sitting alone by the creek, her hands clasped around her knees, her eyes staring at the flowing water as if seeking answers from its depths. He approached quietly, not wanting to startle her. "Alina," he said softly, "you've been quiet today. What's on your mind?" She looked up, her eyes glistening. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "I love spending time with you, I really do, but I keep thinking about the town, about what people say, about everything that could go wrong." Jake sat beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. "I get it," he said. "It's not easy. People talk, opinions form, and it can feel heavy, but you have to remember why we're doing this. It's not about them, it's about us. It's about what we feel, what we want, and what we're willing to work for." Alina took a deep breath, letting his words settle. She knew he was right. She couldn't live her life guided by fear and judgment. If she wanted love, she had to embrace it fully, with all its risks and uncertainties. Over the next few weeks, they continued to grow closer, learning to navigate their fears and doubts. They spent quiet evenings together, sharing stories, helping with daily chores, and enjoying simple pleasures. They discovered shared interests, like a love for music and storytelling, and even found moments of playfulness, teasing each other and laughing until their sides ached. Yet every small victory was accompanied by a reminder of the challenges ahead. The town's whispers persisted, and Alina's insecurities occasionally surfaced. Jake's cautious nature sometimes caused him to withdraw slightly, creating brief but tense silences between them. They were learning that love was not only about connection and joy, it was also about patience, forgiveness, and resilience. One rainy afternoon, they found themselves huddled together under the porch roof, watching the downpour. The rhythm of the rain, the smell of wet earth, and the quiet intimacy of the moment offered a rare sense of peace. Alina rested her head on Jake's shoulder, feeling the warmth and steadiness he provided. "Do you ever think about the future?" she asked softly. "All the time," Jake replied, "but I try not to let it scare me. I focus on what we have now, what we're building together. The future, we'll face it when it comes, together." Alina felt a sense of calm wash over her. She realized that love was not about perfection or certainty. It was about trust, courage, and the willingness to face life's uncertainties hand in hand. She squeezed his hand, feeling a renewed sense of determination. Despite the external pressures and the inner doubts, Alina and Jake were learning to trust each other more deeply. They were discovering that true connection required honesty, patience, and the courage to face challenges rather than avoid them. Every moment of doubt, every whispered comment, and every fear of judgment became an opportunity to strengthen their bond, to reaffirm their commitment, and to grow together. As the days turned into weeks, their relationship continued to develop, marked by shared experiences, laughter, and moments of vulnerability. Alina began to see that love was not just a feeling. It was a choice, a series of decisions made every day to trust, to communicate, and to support each other. Jake, too, realized that love required letting go of past fears, embracing the present, and being willing to face life's uncertainties with someone by his side. By the end of this period, both Alina and Jake had learned valuable lessons about themselves and each other. They understood that love was not always easy or simple, but it was worth the effort, the patience, and the courage. They had faced their first trials together, and though the journey was far from over, they knew they were stronger for it. And as they walked together through the quiet streets of their town one evening, hand in hand, Alina felt a flicker of hope that had been absent for far too long. She knew that challenges still awaited, but she also knew that with Jake by her side, she was ready to face them. Their journey had only just begun, and the lessons of trust, resilience, and courage would guide them as they continued to navigate the complexities of love and life. The weeks had grown warmer, and the town was bustling with activity as summer approached. Alina and Jake's bond had grown stronger, but the challenges they had faced were only the beginning. Life had a way of testing the strength of relationships, and for them, a defining moment was about to arrive, one that would reveal the depth of their courage, trust, and love for each other. It began with a simple plan. Jake invited Alina to help him prepare for the county fair's livestock competition. It was an important event for him, one that required attention, skill, and patience. Alina was eager to assist, wanting to support him and spend time together. They spent the morning preparing the horses, cleaning stalls, and checking supplies. The sun was bright and warm, but their spirits were high, buoyed by their shared purpose and laughter. However, as they worked, a sudden commotion arose at the edge of the fairgrounds. A small fire had started near the hay storage, likely from a spark or a careless ember. Flames licked at the dry grass, spreading quickly in the warm summer air. Panic rippled through the fair, and people shouted to alert others. Horses and livestock were spooked, and chaos threatened to take over the normally calm grounds. Alina froze for a moment, her heart racing. She had never faced danger like this before. Fear surged through her, but it was quickly replaced by determination. She couldn't just stand there. Jake, noticing her hesitation, grabbed her hand firmly. "Stay close to me," he instructed, his voice steady and calm despite the urgency of the situation. Together, they ran toward the fire, helping to guide frightened animals to safety. Jake's knowledge of the ranch and Alina's courage combined to create an effective team. He directed her to hold ropes and lead the horses, while he focused on moving the larger livestock. Smoke filled the air, stinging their eyes and making it hard to breathe, but they pressed on, knowing that hesitation could cost lives. Amid the chaos, Alina felt her fear rise again, but she looked at Jake, saw the unwavering determination in his eyes, and found strength within herself. She realized that love was not only about comfort and companionship, it was also about courage, about standing together when circumstances demanded it. With renewed energy, she followed his instructions, guiding the animals and helping to keep others safe. After what felt like hours, though in reality was only minutes, the fire was finally under control. Firefighters arrived, and the townspeople helped ensure that no one was hurt. The fairgrounds were smoky and charred in parts, but thanks to quick thinking and teamwork, no major injuries occurred. Alina collapsed onto a bench, her hands shaking and her clothes covered in soot, but relief and pride filled her heart. Jake sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders, offering comfort and warmth. "You did great," he said quietly, his voice sincere. "I couldn't have managed without you." Alina smiled weakly, still catching her breath. "I couldn't have done it without you either," she replied. "We did this together." In that moment, something shifted between them. The fear, the adrenaline, the shared responsibility, it all created a bond that went beyond words. Alina realized that Jake was not just a partner in moments of calm and laughter, but also in moments of trial and uncertainty. She saw in him a strength she could rely on, a heart willing to face danger and protect those he cared about. Jake, too, saw Alina in a new light. Her courage, her quick thinking, and her willingness to step forward despite fear impressed him deeply. He realized that love was not only about affection, but also about respect, admiration, and trust. Alina had earned his admiration in ways words could not fully capture. That evening, as the smoke cleared and the fairgrounds settled into a quiet calm, Alina and Jake walked together along a shaded path near the town. Their hands brushed occasionally, and each touch sent a reassuring warmth through them both. They spoke little, content in the silent understanding that had grown between them. Finally, Alina broke the silence. "Jake, today was terrifying, but I feel something has changed. I feel closer to you than ever." Jake stopped and turned to her, his gaze steady. "I feel it too," he said softly. "Today showed me more than words ever could. You're brave, strong, and incredible. I respect you, Alina, more than I can say." Her heart raced at his words, and she felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "I've spent so long feeling invisible, Jake, feeling like nobody wanted me, but with you I feel seen, I feel loved." Jake took her hands in his, holding them firmly. "You are seen, Alina, you are loved. And I want to be with you, through everything, good days, bad days, and the moments that test us the most." For the first time, Alina felt a certainty she had never known before. She realized that love was not about perfection or guarantees. It was about choosing someone every day, trusting them, and facing life together no matter what challenges arose. In Jake, she had found a partner willing to stand by her, not just in comfort but in courage. The following days were quieter, but the memory of the fire lingered as a reminder of what they could face together. The townspeople, witnessing their bravery and teamwork, began to show respect rather than judgment. Some still whispered, but their words no longer carried the same weight. Alina and Jake had proven to themselves and to others that their bond was real and strong. In the weeks that followed, they spent more time together, deepening their connection. They continued to work on the ranch, attended town events, and shared quiet evenings under the stars. Every challenge they faced, no matter how small, strengthened their trust and understanding. Alina learned to rely on Jake's steady presence, and Jake learned to embrace Alina's strength and resilience. One evening, as they sat by a small campfire on the ranch, Alina leaned her head against Jake's shoulder. The flames flickered, casting warm light across their faces, and the world felt calm and safe. "Jake," she said softly, "I used to be afraid of so many things, of being alone, of being rejected, of trusting someone and getting hurt. But now I feel ready. Ready to face anything as long as I have you with me." Jake looked down at her, his expression tender. "I've been afraid too," he admitted. "Afraid of letting someone in, afraid of losing them. But you've shown me that love is worth the risk. And I'm ready, Alina. Ready to face life with you, no matter what comes." The fire crackled, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of grass and earth. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the vast openness of the ranch and the warmth of their connection, Alina and Jake felt a profound sense of unity. They understood that love was not about easy days or flawless moments. It was about commitment, courage, and unwavering trust. Alina smiled, feeling a sense of peace and hope she had never known before. She realized that the trials they faced, the fears they confronted, and the challenges they overcame had only strengthened their bond. Love, she understood now, was not a guarantee. It was a choice. A daily choice to trust, to care, and to be present even in the face of uncertainty. Jake squeezed her hand gently. "Alina, I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. I want to face it with you. I want us to build a life together, filled with honesty, laughter, and strength." Alina's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of joy and relief. "I want that too," she whispered. "I've spent so long waiting for a chance, for someone to see me, and now I know maybe this is the chance I was meant to have." That night under the stars, they made an unspoken promise to each other. A promise to trust, to communicate, and to face life's challenges together. The fire, the chaos, and the trials they had endured became a symbol of their resilience and the depth of their connection. For Alina and Jake, love was no longer a fragile hope or a distant dream. It was real, tangible, and alive, a bond forged through courage, understanding, and shared experience. They had faced fear together, and in doing so discovered the true meaning of partnership and devotion. And as they sat side by side, watching the flames dance and the night sky stretch endlessly above them, they both knew that their journey was far from over. Challenges would come, doubts would surface, and life would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. But for the first time, they were confident in one thing. They would face it together, as equals, as partners, and as two hearts bound by trust and love. After the fire at the fairgrounds, Alina and Jake's relationship grew stronger than ever. The experience had shown them both what it meant to trust and rely on each other, and it had deepened the bond that had begun to form between them weeks earlier. Life, however, still had challenges, and the couple knew that love required constant care, courage, and understanding. The town, which had once whispered and judged, began to see them differently. Neighbors who had doubted their connection now admired the way they worked together, handled challenges, and remained respectful of one another. While some skepticism lingered, it no longer held the same power over Alina. She had discovered that her happiness depended not on the approval of others, but on the strength of the bond she shared with Jake. One sunny morning, Jake invited Alina to the ranch to help him prepare for a busy week ahead. They moved together with ease, sharing laughter and teasing one another over small mistakes. As they worked, Alina reflected on how far they had come. She remembered the days of loneliness, the nights spent feeling invisible, and the long, silent walks filled with doubt. Now all of that seemed distant, replaced by a sense of purpose, love, and belonging. "Jake," she said softly, pausing to tie a knot on a fence, "I never thought I'd feel this happy. I used to think love was something that only happened to other people, not me. But now, being with you, it feels like everything finally makes sense." Jake glanced at her, his eyes warm and full of emotion. "I feel the same way, Alina. You've changed my life. I've spent so long guarding my heart, afraid to trust anyone. But you showed me that it's worth taking a chance." They shared a quiet moment, standing side by side, hands brushing occasionally, hearts beating with a rhythm that mirrored their unspoken connection. It was a calm and peaceful moment, but both knew that life would continue to bring challenges. As the week progressed, the couple faced small but meaningful obstacles. A sudden storm swept through the town one evening, flooding parts of the ranch and threatening some of their livestock. Alina and Jake worked together through the night, reinforcing pens, moving animals to higher ground, and ensuring that nothing was lost. The storm tested their teamwork, patience, and endurance, but they emerged stronger, their bond unshaken. During these trials, Alina learned more about Jake's character than she ever had before. He was steady, patient, and willing to put himself at risk for the safety of others. She realized that true love wasn't only about shared laughter and tender moments. It was about mutual respect, commitment, and the courage to face difficulties together. Jake, too, admired Alina's resilience, determination, and ability to remain calm even in the most stressful situations. She had proven that love could be strong enough to withstand adversity. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat together by the porch, watching the sun set over the hills. The sky was painted with shades of orange, pink, and purple, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. They spoke quietly about their dreams, their hopes, and the future they wanted to build. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Alina asked softly. Jake nodded, taking her hand in his. "All the time, but I know that whatever comes, we'll face it together. That's what matters. I want to build a life with you, Alina, filled with love, trust, and respect. No matter the challenges, we'll face them as a team." Alina felt tears prick at her eyes, not from sadness, but from joy and relief. For the first time in her life, she felt completely seen, understood, and loved. She realized that her plea at the fair, the desperate words of a lonely heart, had led her to something far greater than she could have imagined. She had found not just a partner, but a companion, a confidant, and a true equal. Over the next few months, Alina and Jake continued to nurture their relationship. They spent quiet mornings together on the ranch, working side by side and sharing small joys. They attended town events, supporting each other and showing that their love was real, respectful, and enduring. With every shared task, every moment of laughter, and every challenge faced together, they strengthened the foundation of their life as a couple. Their love became a source of inspiration to others. People who had once doubted them began to admire their dedication, resilience, and the way they treated each other with respect and care. Alina and Jake had shown that love was not about appearances, convenience, or social expectation. It was about connection, trust, and the courage to embrace vulnerability. One day, Jake surprised Alina with a picnic by the creek where they had shared many quiet conversations. The sun reflected off the water, and the gentle rustling of leaves created a peaceful, magical atmosphere. Jake had prepared a simple meal, but the thoughtfulness behind it touched Alina deeply. "Alina," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion, "I've thought a lot about us, about our journey, and about everything we've been through. I know that life isn't perfect and we'll face challenges, but I also know that we can face them together. I want to ask you something important." Alina's heart skipped a beat. She looked at him, her eyes wide with anticipation. "I want us to commit to each other, not just for today or for convenience, but for life," Jake said. "I want to be with you through every high and low, every moment of joy and challenge. Will you marry me, Alina?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and her heart overflowed with emotion. The words she had whispered to herself years ago, words of longing and hope, were finally being answered in the most beautiful way. She nodded, unable to speak at first, then whispered, "Yes, Jake, I will." They embraced, holding each other tightly as the sun dipped below the horizon. In that moment, Alina felt a sense of completeness she had never known. Her years of loneliness, rejection, and longing had led her to this, love that was real, strong, and enduring. The town celebrated with them in small but meaningful ways. Neighbors who had once doubted now offered congratulations and support. Alina and Jake had not only found each other, but had shown the community the power of courage, honesty, and love. Their story became a quiet legend in the town, a reminder that true connection could overcome fear, judgment, and doubt. In the months that followed, they began planning their life together. They worked on the ranch, supported each other in daily tasks, and continued to grow as individuals and as a couple. Every challenge they faced was an opportunity to strengthen their bond. Every shared moment, whether small or significant, became a testament to the love they had nurtured. Alina often reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the lonely nights, the moments of despair, and the fear that she would never be wanted. Now she felt a deep sense of gratitude, not only for Jake, but for the journey that had led her to him. She realized that life had given her one last chance, and she had embraced it fully. Jake, too, reflected on their journey. He realized that love required patience, trust, and vulnerability. Alina had taught him that opening his heart was not a weakness, but a strength. She had shown him that true partnership meant facing life together, supporting one another, and never taking love for granted. Together, they built a life filled with laughter, warmth, and mutual respect. They shared quiet evenings under the stars, celebrated small victories, and faced challenges with courage and determination. Their love was not perfect, but it was real, steadfast, and enduring. Alina often thought back to the moment at the fair when she had spoken from her heart, asking for one last chance. Those words had changed everything. They had led her to Jake, to love, and to a life she had never dared to dream of. She realized that sometimes, taking a risk, speaking the truth, and embracing hope could transform a lifetime of loneliness into shared joy and fulfillment. And so, Alina and Jake's story became one of hope, courage, and love. They had faced fear, overcome doubt, and embraced life together, proving that true connection was worth every challenge. In each other, they had found not only love but partnership, respect, and the promise of a lifetime of shared experiences. As they sat together on the porch one evening, watching the sun set over the rolling hills, Alina leaned her head on Jake's shoulder. He wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. They were quiet, content in the presence of one another, knowing that whatever the future held, they would face it together. "Jake," Alina whispered, her voice soft but certain, "thank you for everything, for seeing me, for trusting me, and for loving me." Jake kissed her forehead gently. "Thank you, Alina, for giving us this chance, for trusting me, for being brave, and for loving me back. I promise we'll face everything together." Under the vast, starry sky, they held each other, knowing that their journey had not only brought them love, but had also shown them the strength, courage, and hope that comes from trusting the heart and embracing life fully. Their story ended not with perfection, but with a promise, one of partnership, commitment, and a love that would endure through all of life's trials. For Alina and Jake, the words "one last chance" had led to a lifetime of shared moments, proving that true love was always worth the risk.